All right, people, welcome to another episode of Natty News Daily. Natty News Daily, got going too fast there. We've got a special guest on tonight, my man Brandon Wadas. Dan and James are probably going to hop in here soon. There's Dan right there. But anyways, Brandon, welcome to the podcast, man. I guess this is your first time on the Natty News rendition of this podcast.
Yes, I guess so. Big fan of the page, obviously. Interact with the page daily. But yeah, first time on the podcast.
Right on. For those that maybe don't know who you are, man, what you're all about, give them an update of where you're at.
Sure. My name is Brandon Wadas, aka the Natty Guy, and I'm a professional natural bodybuilder. I've been competing for 10 years now, and this year I'll be making a run at my second pro season, with my main focus being Mr. America. And I am one of 6 stars on a reality TV series. And I say this kind of in jest as well, because, bodybuilding is my main focus. Being a reality TV star is not on my top 10 things. But I will actually be on CBS Sports Network this year, believe it or not, or next year, whenever it airs, on bodybuilding. So that is who I am. I'm a full-time coach. I guess I forgot to say that. And also a father and a husband. So that is me in a nutshell.
Here we go. Dan, what's up, dude?
Hello.
Fashionably late. What the hell?
Yeah, sorry. That's my bad.
Prep brain right there.
Sure, we'll blame it on that. Even though I'm not prep brained yet. Brandon, how are you prep brained yet?
No,
Dude,
not at all.
You're looking sweet, man.
The face, man. The face is getting smaller.
Well, I'm not even talking about the face, but I've seen your updates.
Oh yeah, I was really happy with today's update. Maybe the page will reshare that, just like they always do. I tag them every time.
We could probably throw you a bone for sure. Man, I get people actually message me. They're upset sometimes when I don't share their stuff, and I'm like, man, I get easily 100 tags a day.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have.
Oh, for sure. I feel bad though, because I'm like, man, I can't possibly share it all, but we try to spread the love. Anyways, let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes of this episode, and I'll kind of let Brandon explain, what we're going to talk about, because he kind of brought this up on a post earlier this week. So you've got the floor, man.
All right, yeah, so cool. There's been a lot of great talk amongst natural bodybuilding enthusiasts as to how to improve natural bodybuilding. And unfortunately, some of what I've seen recently, mainly from presidents of organizations, from judges, just from people throwing in their 2 cents, is they're essentially saying that one of the best fix-alls, if you will, is if people compete more regularly. And among other things, they say that the sport needs to be quote unquote healthier, which I kind of laugh at that.
Contradicts itself, kind of.
In the same sentence as healthy, they're also telling you, well, you should also, should compete every single year. And
I have some thoughts on the healthy thing and some things I've heard from people.
Right. And then, by the way, compete every year, but also compete all year long. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm just sitting there shaking my head. Like, how can someone say that in the same sentence? And I understand, because obviously running a business, I went to business school, believe it or not. I didn't even go to school for fitness or whatever. I went to business school, so I can look at it from that perspective. And I say, okay, well, great. That makes a lot of sense from a business perspective. You want people competing every year, more money. You want them competing more often during the year, more money. And just, keep coming on back. And that's just going to generate a lot more revenue. But, and before we started this podcast, I was telling Leroy that what that will eventually lead to is just a ton of burnout. Because if you have somebody come back 2, 3, 4 years in a row and competing all year long, well, first of all, they're not going to make any progress or any legitimate progress. And then 2, they're just going to get tired because they're going to feel like crap all the time, being in competition shape, and they're not going to want to put their bodies through that anymore. And that's just going to push people away from the sport. And I feel like that could already potentially be happening. And in reality, having people compete more often is not necessarily the answer. And that's a very quick fix, right? It's like putting a Band-Aid on the current situation. You need to take a step back, or maybe 5 steps back, and say, okay, you know, what is really the problem here and what needs to be solved? And I've said a few things. I even made a post today about just something small about coaches, posing coaches, or contest prep coaches shouldn't be a judge in a show. Like, that makes me mad when, okay, someone is a posing coach and they're literally judging their own client on stage. And I'm just like, well, there's no conflict of interest there. Like, it's little things like that that can improve the sport overall. But when someone just says, oh, just compete more often, that's just, it's really far removed from the sport to say those kind of things as the fix, when in reality, these people as presidents of organizations and as judges and promoters should know better. And it shouldn't be up to an athlete, essentially the customer of these businesses, to really tell them, hey, this is what we want as an athlete and as a coach. This is what they should be doing by themselves already.
Yeah, I think that all very valid points. And, you know, we spoke a little bit before, but I can kind of attest to the burnout side of things. Like I said to Brandon before, I competed, you know, 2016, 2017, 18, I had a little bit of time off, compete again in 2019. So it was a lot of back to back to back to back. And, you know, until you're outside of that, you know, feeling like crap, you don't really notice it. Whereas this, you know, period of time I've had off since, you know, last year, I feel great. I'm excited to start prep again, and almost like kind of reinvigorated to compete again. And it's going to bring a better package to stage, which is something that I think, you know, when we talk about people competing more often, like, you're going to kind of degrade the quality of the athletes too, right? Whereas, you know, sometimes people scoff at natural bodybuilding to begin with. And if you have a bunch of, you know, depleted athletes showing up on stage every year, you know, it's just gonna look worse and worse, right?
Right. Yeah, and in that situation, I would think that it's almost, you know, not to get political or whatever, but it's like the slogan, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. It's like those that are already big are going to benefit because they're going to stay big. And the ones that are smaller, maybe like us, they'll say like, well, we'll be like, well, shit, if we want to compete every year, we're not going to be able to make any gains. So we're just going to continue to get poor and, you know, not really make any progress. So it's a losing battle, in my opinion, to put yourself in that situation, no matter what someone else is telling you. And I was telling this to Leroy before, we have to do what's best for us as an athlete. Like, no matter what a judge tells you, what your coach even tells you, unfortunately, sometimes, or what a president of an organization tells you, yes, you can take their advice. But at the end of the day, you have to say, okay, is this really what's going to put me in the best position possible? And if that answer is no, then you have to go against their wishes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when they're not financially incentivizing you to go with their wishes, it's like, I'm going to make the best decision for me.
Right.
Like, you're not paying me to do this. So.
Yeah, you said that in your post, Brandon. I thought, I mean, that's the big thing. Everyone says like all these other pro athletes, they compete year in, year out, all year round. It's like, yeah, they're also making millions and millions of dollars. We lose money and take our health into consideration. Like, if they want us to compete more frequently, there needs to be an incentive to compete more frequently. And I see that same thing with people saying like, all right, you have to compete every 2 years. You have to pay to maintain your membership. Like, if you want people to compete more frequently, the athlete should be wanting to do so and not being forced to do so.
Absolutely. And you know, that's a good point too. And thankfully, and this is what I was kind of getting at as well at the end of the post, I said, there are things going on in the background that are trying to improve the sport as a whole. And I don't really know if I'm allowed to like talk about it. I won't, I'll say that because it's really none of my business. I just happen to know about it because I know the right people. But just for example, I can give one, and saying that there is an overall goal to lower the pro card cost, I should say. So instead of me paying $150 in 3 or 4 different organizations to renew my pro status, they're looking to cut the pro card cost as a whole across the board in order to kind of offset some of the total cost, but then have some pro cards be interchangeable through different organizations. That I could comfortably say, just because that's pretty common.
Yeah, although a lot of them are kind of interchangeable. Because like for like a Mr. America, like you can use pretty much any pro
with
status.
That one, yes, but like for me, I have to buy IPE, I have to buy OCP, I have to buy USBF, like so yeah, Mr. America will take anyone, but if you want to compete in those other
in the organizations,
then you have to buy their pro card. So that's something that's going on. So they're trying to just cut cost and trying to cut the cost that it is to enter a physical show, and try to offset some costs as well via drug testing. Just try to make revenue in different methods. It's just really expensive when you really think about it. And like Jay was saying, you know, you have to make a lot more money in this if you're going to be doing it regularly. And the person who made the comment about the Aaron Rodgers, to me, doesn't know bodybuilding. They were an outside perspective. I'm not going to name names. They just don't understand what bodybuilders go through. All four of us do, and many of our listeners do. But that comment also kind of made me mad. I'm like, dude, like you
don't get it.
Like the top payout this year, and there's two of them. It's Mr. America and a USBF show in Minnesota. It's $5,000. Right. That's the top, tippy top. So if you were to win both of those, which is a tall order, and I'm not saying that I'll win it, because honestly, I don't think I'm going to win either. You would walk out with $10,000. And that's like the baddest man on the planet if you win $10,000 in natural bodybuilding in a single year. And it's chump change compared to, you know, what any other pro athlete is making, let alone Aaron Rodgers. You could, you know, be making the MLB minimum and be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and sitting on the bench. And we're putting our bodies through hell, essentially. You know, I mean, we do it to ourselves, but we're damaging our hormones, you know, we're wasting away muscle mass. And it's not like any other sport, and we're not rewarded in that matter either.
Yeah, it's really like when you compare it financially, it's not even close. You know what I mean? Like I've never won $1 competing anywhere ever. So,
and then you know you're spending a lot of money on the you know the hotels, the tanning, and the entry fees. It's like it's not a cheap sport to compete in, really.
Yeah, I mean, let alone if you have to fly, like, you know, that adds up quick. When I fly this year, like, you know, we're going to Mr. America. I'm flying myself, my wife, my mother-in-law, and my daughter. It's just like, wow. Those are 4 plane tickets that you got to buy. Like, you know, that's not cheap, and it's both ways. You got to have hotel rooms, and that's for one show, literally one show. Yeah. So yeah, it adds up extremely quickly. And granted, like I said, you know, that's $5,000 for first prize. That's great. But if you were to, I don't even want to know what I'm going to pay in expenses to get there and to get back. Even if I were to win, I might net a couple $1,000, you know?
Yeah. You're not doing it for the money.
No, absolutely not. But if in the future, let's say like they offer, you know, $20,000 for a first prize, I'll be like, oh, let's go. You know?
That changes the conversation.
Yeah, it changes the conversation, but we're just not there yet. And I think it could happen, but it's just not at this time. So, and what I'm trying to get at with all of that is, you know, when they tell us to come back more often, my response is why? You know, why should I? If there's no legitimate good reason for me to come back every year or even every other year at this current standpoint, and all of us are fairly young, you know, let's be honest, you know, we don't need to be competing every year or every other year at this point. We're trying to acquire muscle mass and then take advantage of that in our mid-30s and then maybe start competing a little bit more often. At least that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I compete every 3 years right now. It's like, I don't want to waste my youth, and I use that term loosely. You know,
before I
dieting it away.
Right, before I mean, there's gray in here. It's short, so you can't tell. but I just don't want to waste a ton of years dieting all the time when I could be trying to gain legitimate muscle mass. And Leroy even said, and I didn't realize it at the time, but you know, he competed 3 years in a row, and I've seen him blow up the past year, and it makes sense now. I'm like, damn, this guy's like gaining all this muscle mass. What the hell is he doing? Well, it's because he
killed himself
some time off for the first time ever. And I'm like,
some extra maple syrup.
Yeah, fuck. I'm like, what are they doing in Canada, man? But you could tell, like, wow, he's getting a lot bigger. And it's like, gee, wow, you know, what do you know? He took some time off. He ate in a caloric surplus. He's not getting silly with, you know, his weight, but he's training hard. He's eating good. And wow, he's gaining pounds and pounds of muscle tissue. I'm like, if only people could understand that that's really what it takes. And I understand where promoters want people to come back, but it's like, man, Leroy can do a ton of damage in a couple years if he wants to when he comes back and competes, because now he's actually put on a ton of muscle mass. Like, would you rather have a great competitor come back eventually, or just these subpar competitors keep coming back year after year after year? You know, I would like to have a bunch of great athletes on my stage than a bunch of subpar athletes on my stage.
It's kind of playing a long game, really.
Right.
Yeah, like that's, you know, us three have talked about that, you know, to great lengths with me and my time off. And the physical changes have obviously been great, but like mentally, you know, I'm excited. I feel ready. Like, I feel like I'm going to bring something better, which, you know, Brandon, you said you want to bring, you know, good quality athletes to the stage. Well, I went from an okay athlete to a better athlete. And why? Because I didn't compete. Right. So, and I think all of us, I mean, Dan, you've had a good chunk of time away from the stage. You're light years ahead, you know, James as well. So to, you know, do ourselves a disservice by competing more often, physically, competitively, financially, you know, there's very little when you weigh it out. You're like, man, there's really not a lot pushing me to the side of like stepping on stage every year.
Yep.
And, you know, at first it was enjoyment. That's why I competed so often. I liked it. I was good at it, but then that fades. And then, you know, when you get to higher levels, it's like, okay, well, I need to do something to step it up. Cause if I compete again, if I compete again next year, you know, I'm going to get spanked. So I'm going to take some time off, and, you know, all of us can attest to that being the reason we're better. And then when you get those opportunities, hopefully in the future, monetarily, where, you know, maybe they're paying tens of thousands of dollars for a show, you're probably going to see more people take 2 and 3 years, because, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to hopefully lock in $20,000 when I return to the stage. But, you know, if one person is going to get $5,000, you know, you total how much athletes are paying to get there. Like you guys said, it's not even close.
No.
And here's no.
Oh, go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say, I mean, like, the standard keeps getting raised, right? So to do what we need to do to be competitive, you have to extend your preps. And that's something, Brandon, I've known you for, you know, a while. Like, your preps are extensive. You can't do that year after year. I mean, your months and months and months are committed just to prep. And then if you go, I mean, 3-4 months to recover minimum, there it is. Immediately, you're right back into a prep if you're going year to year.
Yeah. And I would never do that. And I think that we all can learn probably to set ourselves up better for a contest prep. Like for me, this last year, obviously I've had, you know, it'll be 3 years off from stage to stage roughly. I let myself get heavy on purpose because I wanted to see. Next time around, I'm not going to do that because, you know, I'm 3 years older. I want to stay a little bit leaner. Now I got to run around and chase kids. And it's just like, I don't want to get up to 212. Like, I don't need to be 212 again just to say that I was. I'll probably keep it under 200 for sure. And maybe even closer to 190. So I'll be a little bit smarter. But even if I were to keep it, let's say at 190 and I compete at 170 or just under, that's still 20 pounds to lose. And like you said, you're not just going to flip a switch and just lose all that weight in a short amount of time. Like, you have to give yourself, you know, at least 20 weeks or so in a deficit if you're just going to try to cut it close. And I don't like to cut anything close. I like to have diet breaks. I like to allow myself time to reverse into a show. So you're looking at 30 weeks there if you're doing all those things. And if we're not very good at math, that's over half a year. It's just like you can't do it.
Yeah.
And to get back to what we were saying before Jay commented, is that we don't just compete for the money, right? Because I really could care less what the Mr. America title is paying out this year. I just want to win Mr. America. Like, I want to be called Mr. America. Granted, I'll be honest, and I'll go on the record and say that I probably will not win, because I know some damn good competitors doing that show. But by the off chance that I win, that would just be phenomenal, right? So
you're in the mix, though.
I'm in the mix, but I don't think I'm the front runner.
Who's competing? Who are you talking
I don't know
about?
if I can say.
Okay.
I can tell you guys off air, but
okay.
This person tends to be more of a stealth and just
fly by night kind of guy.
I think that comment alone lets me. I got like 3 in mind now.
I mean, you guys know this guy, obviously. But
all right, guys, I'm doing Mr. America.
No, yeah, right. So, but it's like, we don't just compete for the money. It is the titles, but the money helps, right?
For sure.
If I was getting paid $0, and I will potentially get $0 from Mr. America, because if I don't win, top 3, you don't get paid. So I could literally, lose money on this show, which is a very likely scenario. I'm still going to enjoy it because I want to do it. I want the opportunity, but the money does make it better, and it's incentivizing us to push ourselves to that limit. And like Jay was saying, there's always a higher standard. And when there is that higher standard, you have to come in bigger and come in leaner. And what do you have to do in order to do that? Well, you have to take time off. Like, if I were to try to compete at Mr. America every single year from here on out, I would look a small % better, maybe every single year, rather than maybe if I take 2 or 3 years off, which I plan to do after this year, then I'll look that much better and maybe have a better opportunity to come back and actually legitimately win. So let's say this year, if I got like 4th place, which is, it's likely, maybe I really hope to crack the top 3, but even if I got like 3rd, I'm not just going to come back next year and be like, oh, I got this, I'll beat the other 2 guys, or, whoever else shows up. No, like, you got 3rd, you're not Mr. America yet. Like, you got more work to do if you want to come back and win. And I know I'll be pressured. I guarantee it, from a TV standpoint, from the promoter, to say, hey man, you were on this TV show, you did this show this year, like, will you come back next year? And if I win, I told Leroy, well, I might come back next year if I win, but dude, if I lose, like, I'm not going to come back next year because I have work to do. So, it's a point where, do I want to step on stage just for the sake of stepping on stage? The answer is always going to be no for me, because I am looking at the future and saying, well, I want to be the best I can be, and coming back next year and dieting for 30 weeks is not going to be the best I can be.
Yeah. You even said, coming in bigger and leaner, and because the standard of conditioning is getting so extreme, it takes time to recover from that. Right. So if you compete, in the fall, takes you till the new year that you're feeling halfway decent, couple months go by, you got to start prep again. And then, how could you possibly think you've improved in 4 months of actually good quality training and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
like, it just doesn't work like that.
Maybe if you're a single man and, you don't have a family and no kids, no wife, and all you do is bodybuild, then maybe, but my wife is already saying, like, so when are you done dieting this year?
James can speak to that. Me and you have talked about that at great lengths, having, actual outside responsibilities where, like you said, Brandon, if you're a single guy, you live on your own, bodybuilding 24/7, you don't have to think about anything else. Like, but for a lot of us, that's just not how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have a wife here, and you said 6 weeks, and it's just like, there's other things as we get older. And granted, I was super guilty of this when I was younger. It was all bodybuilding all the time. Like, from when I was 19 to 23, that's like all I did. I mean, I had a girlfriend at the time who was currently my wife. So
he stuck it out. There you go. That's a keeper.
But, you know, I wasn't married to her at the time. I wasn't living with her, obviously. So it's like, I had all those years to focus strictly on bodybuilding. But as I get older, as I got married and now have kids, and it's just like, man, there's other things that we need to do. And that gets back to why we don't compete every year. It's because it takes a toll on our families when we do this. Like, as good as I feel this year, I feel like I'm navigating through this contest prep, it still puts a strain on the family. Like,
without a doubt.
You know, whether it's cooking different dinners, whether it's giving me more time to relax during the day because I'm feeling like crap. My wife handles a lot of, you know, our daughter's duty, like as far as like taking her to gymnastics or putting her to bed, just like things that I don't have to do, which automatically means that she's doing more, you know? So eventually that needs to go the other way, where I need to start doing a little bit more after prep is done because I can physically handle it. So it's not just a monetary thing or us being, you know, title chasing. It's like literally bodybuilding doesn't run our lives. And this is coming from someone who is a coach, is an athlete. Like, bodybuilding is a large part of my life. And I think that as someone who it is such a big part of their lives, is telling the audience like, hey, you know, it's not everything. Like, I just hope people can understand that and just be like, well, this guy is like Mr. Bodybuilding, but he's also saying like, you have to be a dad, you have to be a husband. Like, you can't just live at the gym and eat your Tupperware. Like, you have to participate in life because there's a lot more to life than just bodybuilding all the time.
I can't remember who said it. I saw it on a post recently. It was like, I do bodybuilding, I'm not a bodybuilder, or something to that effect. And basically what you're saying, right? Like, you know, as much as it is a big part of all four of our lives and a lot of people listening, you know, at a certain point, there becomes a lot of other factors that start to kind of creep above that, right? Whether it's, you know, a partner, whether it's kids, you know, career path, whatever that could be, right? And, you know, that lends to then taking, you know, those 2 to 3 year gaps away from the stage or whatever it may be, because you've got to put that effort in, because prep's not easy, right? And it takes its toll across all areas of your life in some form or another, right? So I think that comes with maturity as an athlete too, and seeing that stuff.
Yeah, and as a person as well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
You know, us getting a little bit older, it's just like you understand what is truly important in life now. And when I was younger, I didn't think the same. And now I'm like, oh man, like I feel like an old man the way that I think now in certain aspects. But it's just like, it's powerful to think a different way than you once did. And you're like, wow, like I'm actually maturing. You know, I understand what is important in my life. And while, you know, I really do want to do well this year, I'm just happy to be able to be in the position that I am, like with my coaching business, to be able to prep from home this time and not have to worry about that, to have the opportunity to be on TV. But this whole time I need to be present in my daughter's life. Like, I can't be an absent husband. Yep. So there's a lot of other things, you know, going on that are important to us as individuals and not the bodybuilder, right? Like you were saying, Leroy, it's, we do bodybuilding, but that's not who we are.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Is there anything you guys want to add? I think that was a pretty good way to end her.
No, I think that was great. Yeah.
Dan being the single one of the group that is a bodybuilder, actually.
Yeah.
But anything you'd like to close out on?
Yeah, I mean, like I have definitely noticed, well, this time around, like I live by myself now. Before I lived at home, I was working in the office. Now I live alone and I work from home regularly. And I'll admit it's a lot less stressful. It's a lot less stressful. Like I have like we touched on, I don't have quite prep brain yet, but I've noticed some stuff kind of creeping in where I'm like, like I can kind of pick up on it and know I'm being like irrational and stuff, like getting annoyed with people. But like in general, I live by myself. So it's like, you know, at a certain point in prep, it's like, I want to be left the hell alone. Don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to anyone. I could go like the entire day without talking to anyone. I'd be completely fine. Like, and I'm a more introverted person in general, but like, you know, it's like,
enjoy it while you can, man.
Yeah, I am.
because next time it might be different.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, because I have like a comparable prep. Like, so it was a different living situation to now. It's definitely a less stressful environment for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and that's one thing I guess, and I think it'll kind of end it as well. Just to put things into perspective, is we tend to fit our bodybuilding seasons, you know, into our lives as best we can. And unfortunately, sometimes, yes, like you do have to pull out a prep because something happens, you know, God forbid someone gets sick in your family. And it's just, there's more important things that are going on in life, where we try our absolute best to say, okay, this is the competitive season that I want to be in, right? Let's see if I could diet for, you know, 40 weeks or whatever and fit it in 2021. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, it's not like we are not bodybuilding the entire time. It's just, when do we decide to compete and when is it best for us? And I think that if I could stress one thing, and Leroy asked me, what's the one point that I want to get across in this whole podcast, is that no matter what anyone tells you, is we have to decide what's best for us as an individual in our bodybuilding careers, taking in consideration all the factors that we talked about: family, you know, husbands, wives, daughters, whatever, your job. We have to, you know, reflect on what's best for us, and not what some promoter is telling us to do, to come back and do their spring and fall show every single year. Come on back, keep paying, you know. It's just, you have to realize that maybe they're not looking out for the best for you. They're just looking out for the best for their bank accounts.
Awesome. All right, man. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Where can people find you, man, if they want to inquire about coaching or anything through social media, stuff like that?
Yep. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook, mainly under the Natty Guy, _Natty_guy. And I'm also on Facebook, Brandon Wadas. And then my coaching business is Team Iron Management. If people want to find me there as well, I do have a website. I don't update it too much, but I am on the internet.
Now, do you coach just competitors or Gen Pop too?
Yeah, strictly competitors. I do have a partner that coaches with me as well, and he helps. He does more lifestyle clients, but I am strictly competitors at this time.
Awesome. All right, people, if you guys did enjoy this episode, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, obviously, for future episodes. If you have questions about anything we talked about, obviously all four of us, you can find us through Instagram and stuff like that. And don't forget to follow the Natty News page on Instagram. We just broke 5,500 followers. That's pretty damn cool. 10K, we can do swipe ups and other cool things. So get us there. Thank you again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.